Project managers, have you ever felt like you should get that promotion or a better job? Start a business. Write that book. Have you ever felt you were made for more but didn't know where to start?
Welcome to the PM for the Masses podcast with your host, Caesar Abaid.
Learn from the experts. Think outside the box. Have a voice, network, and be extraordinary.
PM for the Masses podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again. I'm Caesar Abaid, your host, and this show is your regular reminder that your career matters more than your job, and that your life is a project and you are the manager. Whether you work for a company or for yourself, your job stability is really just your ability to land the next gig. So join me in practicing intentional, planned, and value-adding relevance, starting right now. Today, my friends, I bring back to the show my dear friend Traci Duez, author, consultant, coach, extraordinaire, multi-talented umpire. She does it all. And we're going to talk about tooting your own horn, self-promotion, why self-promotion often seen as uncomfortable, how can we shift our mindset about it, and how to do that in a way that's not off-putting. So Traci, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, Caesar. Thank you so much. This is awesome. I always look forward to these.
It's so nice to have you back on the show. And just for those who don't know, you and I are really good friends, and we do talk off, the podcast regularly, maybe every other week or so. Stay in touch, and I just love your work. I love what you do, and I love you. You're great. But that's me talking about you. Today, we're going to talk about how can we say those things about ourselves, right? So why is self-promotion seen as uncomfortable, and how can we change how we think about this?
Well, it's really amazing because one of the things I did a PMI seminars world. Wait, what is it called now? PMI training in Las Vegas. I'll be doing another one this December as well, or November. Anyways, I asked the team, the group, there are 19 or 20 people in there. I asked them to introduce themselves, and then I asked them one thing that's unique about them and what they'd like to learn. And it's amazing how long it takes people to think about one thing that's unique about them. Now, one lady said she was a twin, and I thought, well, wait a minute, that means you're not unique. But
right. Wow, that's right.
Right. But anyways, we had a good laugh about that. But then the other thing they said is they don't know how to, as you said, promote themselves. And so we look at, okay, what is it that gets in the way? And usually, so I asked them that. It was kind of fear of rejection, fear of being labeled as a pompous jerk or something. I don't know, right? Conceited or something like that. For many, it's just a lack of confidence, just self-confidence, I'll call it. It's not even confidence. And then for others, it's not accepted in their cultural norm, right? Or their family of origin said, no, you don't do that. That's bragging, and nobody should be braggadocious or conceited or whatever. And sometimes it's just this personal belief. And I can't tell you how many people have said to me, well, I shouldn't have to. My boss should do that for me. My supervisor should do that for me. So if I just look at some of the ones that are most common, those are sort of the top 5, I guess, that come to mind.
Right. And I think we have I always think about this in politicians, right? Because we want people who are humble and self-sacrificing, right, to be our leaders. But people can only be elected to those positions if they talk about how great they are all the time, right? So I think we associate saying I'm the greatest with sleazy politicians, right? Is that, I don't know. And we don't want to be like that, right? We want to be better than that.
Yeah. And I think you brought up another word, the word humble. And I'm kind of a contrarian around the word humble. People say, oh, you should be humble. You should practice humility. And I don't know if anyone has actually ever looked up what those words mean, or they just hear other people say it and then they're like, yep, okay, we should do that.
What does it mean?
Because it means having a feeling of insignificance, inferiority, or subservience. It means low in rank and importance. And it actually means to lower yourself. So that's what it means. And when that word came out, it was because leaders were telling their people to be humble because they didn't want any backtalk, like your mom growing up. Well, maybe that was just my mom. I don't know. And so being humble was, you should be humble. You should practice humility. But it also means when you're being humbled, like the verb humbled, it means to destroy independence, power, and will. And when we want leaders, we don't want leaders who feel insignificant or who lower themselves, because you can't raise anybody up if all you're doing is lowering yourself.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good point. And I'll be humble here and say that one of the things that I struggled with in the past, and I still do to a certain extent, is focus and productivity. And I want to basically maybe toot my own horn here because I'm doing better in that regard. And because I've been taking Magic Mind, as you know. So I just wanted to give everybody an update because it's been 10 days now since I started drinking 1 shot a day. And it's been a transformation, really. If you remember, Magic Mind is a mental performance shot that combines adaptogens, mushroom nootropics, and vitamins, essential vitamins that together they enhance focus, they reduce stress, and boost productivity. After those few days of feeling calmer and more focused, I didn't know if it could improve much more because I had noticed already an improvement. But here I am. It's been 10 days and it feels like it keeps getting better. I've noticed that my productivity levels have improved. My mornings feel more energetic, and it feels like I've been able to tackle my tasks with clarity, which is something that I haven't experienced in a long time. And here's the best part. I used to struggle with distractions, and I've talked about that here extensively. And especially these days, whether it's my phone pinging in my pocket or my mind wandering, staying on track was always a challenge. But since starting this challenge with Magic Mind, I feel like I've finally found my groove here. It's as if this little shot has almost like cleared out the noise and allowed me to focus on what truly matters and choose what to focus on. Sometimes it's not what matters. It's just like doing a crossword puzzle, but I'm able to focus on whatever I'm doing. And I'm able to choose what I need to focus on and then lean into it. It's really cool. And the best part is not just about energy. It's about sustainable mental performance. These adaptogens and nootropics really help me manage stress. It's been a few stressful weeks here at work and at home. And the best part of it all is there's no jitters. Like if you have too much coffee, you get you get on edge. There's none of that with Magic Mind. I just feel balanced, energized, and ready to take on whatever comes my way. Now, if you're curious about trying it out, can't recommend it enough. You can grab up to 48% off your first subscription or 20% off one-time purchases with code Project20, and that's 20, Project20 at the checkout. So just head on over to magicmind.com/project. Again, magicmind.com/project and use code Project20 for your discount. Can't recommend it enough. Now, I'm done with that. Traci, back to humility. I read this once. What is it? That there's a difference between thinking less of yourself and thinking of yourself less. Right?
Yes.
So maybe that's it. We should accept that we are great at least a few things, right? Or we have like a superpower somewhere, and we might be like uniquely positioned to do this one thing really well, right? But accept that. But then if that's your entire personality, then that's maybe the problem. So you can still think of yourself, like you say, thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. So yes, I am great at these things. How can I help other people? And then focus on others, right? So that's a way to stay humble while accepting the truth of who you are.
Yeah. So what are some of the things what are your superpowers?
Oh, now you're going to put me on the spot. I have a
am.
podcast that's kind of unique, right? And I like talking. I think my super, like, I think the word is connector. Like I talk to somebody and then I'll talk to somebody else in another context and I'll like, oh, you know what? There's like an overlap here. Maybe I can introduce those two folks. And I just sit back and I watch, the magic happen, There's a number of situations that I've seen that happen. And at work as well, like I tend to be, like maybe like a Renaissance man in a way. Like I know a lot about a lot of things, but not like in depth. So I can participate in many different types of conversations, and contribute. Right. And again, always thinking about how I can connect this team to that team or this person with that person. I think that's probably how I would describe my superpower.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. That's what I see in you, that connection piece. And also I love that you talked about Renaissance, because you can connect a bunch of different things that other people might not be able to see because of your experiences and what you've lived and that, and just your having a podcast, the wealth that you've created from your podcast. Okay, which is, I mean, the generosity is really what that's about, right? You didn't do this because, well, you're going to make $1 million
right,
or whatever it tends to be. And the generosity just to share those kind of things. So that's what, I mean, I see all of that as a blend, being you. And so you don't have to be humble about or lower yourself about that. But being modest is okay. You don't shout it from the rooftops or anything like that. That just means free from vanity and egotism or boastfulness, right? And so modest is, I believe, way better than being humble in the true meaning of the word. I do believe that when people say humble or humility, they mean modest, but they don't say modest.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
And there is also a sense in understanding like maybe you do have a gift, but it's not for you, it's so you can share that with other people. And then all of a sudden, you can still acknowledge that, but you understand that you're there. This is there for the building of society or the community or your organization, right? And then you become just like this instrument, right, of that gift, so you can share that with others. And I think the podcasting is, I hesitate in saying that this is what the podcast is because I get so much out of this. I enjoy this so much, right? So yes, it is kind of in a way it's a bit selfish because I just do this for myself first and foremost. Otherwise I wouldn't do it. But there is that element of the benefit that you get as a guest and the listeners get, from the content that I share, that sometimes I forget, but that's like, that's one way of thinking about it in a way that's not like, oh, I'm such a selfish jerk. I just do things for myself,
Yeah. Well, there's so much success, right? It's not a finite resource that we have to fight over. And so your success and your joy of putting together this podcast, right? My joy of being a guest on it, and people who obviously are listening, their joy of listening, that it doesn't have to be one or the other. That's the combination of what this success is. And being able to celebrate that allows you, me, whoever, it encourages each other to create those positive, uplifting, supportive experiences, which help all of us. And I think that's really what promotion or self-promotion is about, okay, right? Because nobody hears this podcast if people don't talk about you and what you've created.
Right. All right. So I shared mine. So just for the audience, so they have a second example of how one can identify their superpowers. What is your superpower, Traci, in your own judgment?
I often ask other people, but for me, I want to lift other people up. I want to inspire people. Inspire meaning breathe life into. I want to be able to have them find fulfillment in their life, because my story is one where I didn't, or I thought I couldn't. And then being able to help people shift their thinking, shift their perspectives. And well, just like the perspective I took on the word humble, it's not about right or wrong. I don't say you're wrong if you think this, but it's about, hey, what if we looked at this differently? And I think that's probably my superpower, being able to look at things a little differently and bring value in doing that.
I agree. There's never a time when I talk to you and I don't come out of it better than when I started. So I agree that that's something, and you just do this naturally. It's like there's no tolerance for wallowing in your whatever the word is. It's like, okay, well, that's okay. What can you do about it? It's like, well, let's get out of it. And you pull me up. It's great. So I agree with that.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we have the aspect of the gifts that we have, and maybe not just that things we were born with, but things that we developed over time, our experiences and our education, things that we learned to do. And that's kind of like I see that as like a source of things that you can go to and then use that to accomplish other things, things that are tangible in the world. So you talk about an accomplishments inventory, right? Mm-hmm. And how important that is. So can you explain that, what that is, and how someone can maybe create one?
Yeah. So I also like to think of it kind of as a backward bucket list. Okay. So we often have bucket lists, or things that we look to achieve or experience in our lives. Mm-hmm. Well, these are things, your inventory are things that if you had been born with a bucket list and you could go check off your boxes like any good project manager wants to do, you've already checked those things off. Now, some of them might not have actually been things you would have intentionally set to check off, but you got to do them anyways. And so those are the things that you can draw upon. And I often have people do that in my coaching programs. And then I have them just read the list as if it's not theirs. And what do you think about that person? And what are some words that you would use to describe them? And it's really amazing how we don't see ourselves. And yet we know all those stories came out of their brain, all those experiences. And yet it's not something that we tend to think of. And that uniqueness, that unique blend that we use to toot our own horn, and to use to share with other people about our accomplishments. So you've done a number of things in your life that other people haven't experienced all of those same things.
Mm-hmm. So what does that look like? Is it like a Google Doc that you can keep and you list your accomplishments, or what does that look like in reality?
Yeah, well, it's the opposite of what a bucket list. So people have this bucket list and they want to check off the boxes, right? Mm-hmm. I have people continue to add to their backward bucket list as they check off. So every box you check off your bucket list goes on your backward bucket list. So you can keep looking at it. You can keep looking at the experience and not look at the holes that you have in terms of the stuff you haven't yet experienced, but you look at the bucket as it's filling up. It's not an empty bucket that you're trying to then fill up. It's already filled with all of those experiences that you had, whether it's you won the 4th grade spelling bee, that would go in there. Because in that moment, that was something that was like uber important to you, really super excited about it, right? So that's what we're looking for, those things that are really exciting, or that were really exciting to you at the time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, and this is actually easier to do these days than not, because a lot of the task management, like I know I use OmniFocus and I use MeisterTask for my task management, and there are ways to just list, checked off tasks that were completed in the last week, right? You can if you can create a habit of just looking at those. Oh, that actually was really cool that I did this, and then promote that to your inventory of things you want to think about and be proud of.
Well, and look through your photos, right? Those memories are things that come up from the past that come up on whatever social media you happen to have. You can actually look at real photos. I don't know if you know this or not, Caesar, but back in the day, they actually printed them out on photo paper.
Wow.
They weren't, yeah, it was pretty amazing. They had these little books with pictures in them. It was pretty fun.
So it means you had to wait. Like if you took a picture of your dinner, you had to go and wait until it came out before you could share it with people.
Right. And you could only share it with people who you could hand it to. Yeah, that was,
wow.
Yeah. So looking back over the years of pictures that you have on Facebook, that's so many things that you'll see you forgot you did. Right. And again, it doesn't have to be magnificent. The other side of those good things are the things that you've lived through. Mm. So when I was a freshman in college, I was told I had cancer. Now that sucked. I didn't know if I was going to get to play my basketball season that I wanted to play. But those are the things too that we've been through. The day before my baby sister's wedding, my mom's mom passed away. Mm. So we went from being all excited about a wedding to, oh no. And then, okay, let's be excited for her wedding. And then she's on a honeymoon. We're at a funeral. Mm. It like the ups and downs and the emotional toll that those things take. But when you look back on those, you realize that some of those tribulations were actually areas or the times when you grew the most.
Right. And we fail to see it at the time. But we do grow. Yeah, I can think of a number of things that I went through that basically kind of shaped me into the person I am today. You know, we like to think we're always the same, but we're not, right? Like things happen to us, and then the way we react to them or not react to them just changes who you are in a more like profound way.
Yeah. Yeah. And so using those things to promote yourself and to say, not only did I do these things, these wonderful accomplishments that you can put out there in social media that people will be like, oh, that's awesome. But also those things that sucked when you went through them. And you can use those as well to say, look, this is where I get my strength from. This is where I get my inspiration from. So many businesses are started or people get into certain careers because something happened in the past that wasn't all that good.
Right.
Right. And so using that, I mean, and going back to what we talked about first off, it's okay to talk about yourself. Guy Kawasaki says, if you don't toot your own horn, don't complain there's no music.
That's good.
Right? That's and good. It's your horn. So who else why do you want somebody else to toot it? You can toot your own horn.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So that accomplishment can be helpful.
All right. So in my mind now, at first we talked about our personal gifts and the things we can do and things we're capable of doing and things we're good at. And then now we talked about the things that happened to us and how we reacted to them. How about when people say nice things about us, about the things that we may not have realized that we did? How do we keep track of those, or should we keep track of those? And how do we get more of that feedback from people? Because I'm sure, if I just went out right now and asked one of my kids, I'm here at home, or my wife, hey, can you say something nice about me? I'm sure they'd come up with a list, right? So can we do that? How should we do that without sounding like a weirdo?
Like a weirdo, yeah. Well, people have already said nice things about you, and so using that, one of the best examples I have of this happened to be from a guy who came to sell carpet at my house. Right, he brings his samples, and we're looking at them, and we're just talking. He's talking about his company, and why would we want to buy from them? So the company side of things, and then he says, my boss says I'm one of the best sales guys around because I give my phone number to my customers so that on day of installation, if there's any problems, they can call me. And so, wait a minute. I thought he just tooted his own horn by saying, my boss says I blah, blah, fill in the blank, right? And in this case, and by the way, he did give me his phone number. I did buy carpet from him, and I did call him on the day of installation because of some installation problem I had. And he was right there. But anyways, I just say that because use what other people say about you and just say, Caesar says I'm this, or, whoever, you can say Traci said I'm this. And it doesn't sound like unless you just keep going on about the next person who said something nice and the next person who said something nice, but keep track of those things, right? Many people get performance reviews, but what they really look at is the stuff they need to fix, quote unquote. No, read the stuff that people said that you're good at. If you do those 360s where people can just put in comments, read the good things people say, and remember it, like use it. Say to yourself, Joe said this about me, and now you'll be able to get to it whenever you need it. Because there are opportunities that you're really missing out on when you can't say nice things about yourself.
Right. Yes. I've been in that situation where caught off guard. It's like, hey, tell me what are some of the things you've done in the last few weeks, whatever. Like, because I think ultimately in our minds, and especially if you're a decent human being, we have this, and I think it is a good motivation because it makes us want to be better and do better. But we have this underlying feeling that we're not measuring up, right? We're like coming up short. And as maybe it's true, but most times it's not true. You're actually getting paid. Let's see, in your job, right? You're getting paid to do your job, and you're doing it, and you're getting paid, and you do it. If you were not measuring up, you would be let go, right? So the fact that you still have that job is a good sign that, hey, but that feeling of like, okay, I need to kind of level up. It's what makes us grow. And I think the byproduct of that is that oftentimes we're thinking less of ourselves. And then when asked, we don't know what to say because deep inside we think like, oh no, now, imposter syndrome, right? Now I'm caught.
Yes.
I've been caught, So how do we, you talked about having a visual board, like a visual reminder. What are some creative ideas for how to keep a log of all this so it can help boost your confidence so you have something to say when they're asked about your accomplishments?
You mentioned in the past, I like to write, or at least I don't use paper and pencil anymore, but I keep notes. I have a journaling app, which I use, and I'm not one that is religious about using it every day, but whenever I have an experience, like yesterday, I had lunch with a friend of mine. Well, actually, she's been a client of mine in many different times. And I just reached out to her, hadn't heard from her for a while. She's got married. I've gotten married. And so we had lunch with her, and it was just like so delightful to have that conversation with her. And so when I have those kind of experiences, I then just like do a thought download of like, what was so good and what did we say and what did we share? And then what do we plan too? So we can continue to follow up there. But just being able to find a place just to capture or download your thoughts and be able to go back and read it again if you need to or if you want to. But if you're not going to be your own historian, then don't be shocked when no one remembers you.
Right.
Someone has to write the history. You can do it on social media. I have a friend from high school. She writes every day on Facebook, and it's like brilliant stuff. She should just write a book, but she says, I am writing a book. It's called Facebook. And there's some really neat experiences that she has. But she's captured them all, and they're all out there. So she needs to go back and think about one or see one or whatever. It's all right there. And I'm not saying you have to put your life out on social media either. So, I do mine in a journal here on my computer. So
Yeah, about legacy and how I always use this as maybe I've shared this before here, maybe not, because I like telling this story, but how, we are always so full of ourselves. We think about ourselves a lot in our lives and stuff. But after we go and we pass on, what people remember about you is basically, it may not be what you think, right? Because especially if you didn't really, so I have a story in my family. It's I think he was the uncle of my grandpa, I guess, my great uncle. This is back in Brazil, back in a time when they had outhouses. And it was a big family, and he was I think he was like 16, and he liked to go smoke. He liked to hide and go smoke different places because his mom didn't approve. So the story is that he went to smoke in the outhouse, right? And he lit the match, and then he threw the match into the toilet, and the whole thing blew up because of methane gas, right? So so there's this. My grandpa used to tell this and laugh because he was a little boy at the time and he remembered it. So out from the backyard comes his uncle, and he's all like, just like out of a movie or a cartoon. His hair is all sticking up, his face is all black. It's like all, and a hilarious story. I know nothing about this guy other than this story. And nobody else in the family, right? This is the only thing that stayed from this man, right? And I'm sure he was a great guy. Like if he was a bad guy, we would know that too. So I'm sure he was just fine. He had a job, maybe he got married and had kids, whatever. But that's his legacy, right? He's the guy who blew up the bathroom. So what is it that you're leaving behind in terms of what you did? Because we're all doing good things here, right? Like, because think about that, in a few years, what is the trail that you left behind? And if people were to find it, would be able to kind of, hey, this person did some good things, right?
And that's the other side. Another point is acknowledging your contributions, because I always heard, I coached basketball in high school and in college, and I always heard when the team loses as the coach, it's your fault. Take the blame for that. And when they win, give all the credit to your team. And a lot of leaders lead that way. Mm-hmm. If the team does well, it's the team that did well. If things get screwed up, they'll say, "Oh, it was me that screwed up. Sorry." And that does no one any good. Because now, when the team loses and then you want them to perform better or do better, they'll be like, "Why? You're the one that screwed up."
Right.
Right. And then if they won and it was all the credit was given to them, then, why do they need you again? So why do they want to listen to you? So you end up undermining your leadership when you do that. So yes, your team can do well, but you did something too. So it's, hey, we completed this project on time, under budget. And whatever it was that you contributed, acknowledge that. I put the plan together. I helped them, got these obstacles out of their way, whatever that happens to be. So it's okay to say I sometimes. That's how you start to speak for yourself.
This is a hot take, Traci, because this is one of the dogmas of leadership, right? Like the buck stops here, and then, promote the team and not you. So I can see how, like, I'm listening to this and just, it makes me uncomfortable. Okay, how do I do this without it's a tenet of good leadership. So that's very challenging for me to hear. I don't even know how would I do that?
So imagine raising your kids,
mm-hmm.
and they never did anything wrong, because everything they did wrong, it was because you didn't teach them well. It was your fault. It was because you messed up. You didn't put a good plan together. You didn't put them in the right school. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. And so, your kids were always given gold stars, always got more than a participation trophy. Even if they got one, you went and got them a bigger trophy because they deserved all the credit for everything that happened. How do you think things would end up?
Yeah, well, there's two sides. One is that when things go wrong, I think that's easier to kind of, all right, folks, yes, the buck stopped with me and I'm accountable, but here's how we need to work on so this doesn't happen again, right? And that way we're kind of distributing blame a little bit. But the opposite is, for me, is the challenge. When things go swimmingly, and
yes.
I don't want to just go in there and cut the ribbon, even though everybody else did the work. I mean, I'm sure I contributed, right? But how to celebrate that, including myself into it, I can tell I'm going to have a hard time with that one.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, quarterbacks on football teams that win the Super Bowl or something, they're pulled up on stage and the first thing they do is thank other people.
Right.
Right. Which is cool. But then they're the ones holding the trophy. And nobody says, oh, look how pompous they are, those jerks. No, they're like, hey, they won the Super Bowl. That's quite an accomplishment. There's very few people who get to do that. And there's Tom Brady, who's done it 7 times, right? And he doesn't go around carrying his Super Bowl trophies with him, but on that day, he lifted it high because he worked hard for it. He knows what he did for it, and he's okay telling you that he worked hard for it. But it was those offensive linemen that blocked for him. It was that running back that did. It was the defense that did. And so you can still talk about that and you at the same time. It's not an either or, and I think that's where a lot of us get stuck.
Right. And this was my next question that I had written down here. How can individuals promote themselves, or how can we promote ourselves without feeling like we are diminishing the achievement of others, right? So I think that kind of covers that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, P.T. Barnum from Barnum and Bailey Circus.
Yeah, the greatest showman.
He once said, without promotion, something terrible happens. Nothing. And so without you promoting you, you can't expect anything to happen. And those aspects of talking about yourself, as long as it's not a constant drone about you. I mean, some people say I so much, we think like they're an optometrist or something, but they're not, right? And it's not about that. Sharing your uniqueness, asking other people about theirs, right? Talking to other people about what you love about them. You can also say that about you, like what it is that you like about you. And you don't have to say it in your words. Have other people, hey, so-and-so has said this about me. Or on this project, this is the piece I worked on. But we all got it across the line. You can say that. Mm-hmm. I think you really need a blend of things, because here's the thing. I watched people tell me that so-and-so isn't as good as they are, but they were promoted before them. And when I ask them why, they're going to make up some excuse like he kisses butt or whatever, some, demeaning excuse as to why she got promoted higher than they did. But in truth, if you go ask their boss, which I've done, it's because they know what that person has done. Well, Joe did this and he did this and he did this and he led this project and he led that. Oh, so wait, so-and-so didn't? Well, maybe they did, but I didn't know about it. And it's about what people know about you that's important. And that's all they have to go on. Mm-hmm. And if you're not the one doing it, then all you have to do, though, is just share your story. It's not about being a jerk about it. It's about sharing a story. Like, hey, what's one thing good that happened last year or something like that? Well, I got to umpire at the Little League World Series, the 8th woman ever to do that. It was so amazing to be around those little kids and the Chinese pitcher. I was behind home plate throwing 80 miles an hour. I can share that story, but I don't have to sound like a jerk. But now I umpired at the Little League World Series, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you share it as a story, it's a lot easier for people to digest than if you just listed, oh, I did this and I did this and I was on ESPN and I was doing whatever. Like that's not the part of it. It's about sharing kind of who you are. And it's really about, I think, it's about self-respect. Mm-hmm. Respect yourself enough to toot your own horn. It's your horn. Why do you want somebody else to toot it? Is it easier? What if they don't toot it right?
Yeah. This is great.
Yeah.
All right. So my audience is very practical. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit. What are some practical tips that you would give to someone who is new to this idea? Like you talked about journaling, and so what would be like a great place to start here for the beginning, the first steps?
Yeah, well, we talked about the accomplishments inventory or backward bucket list. Start just to capture your accomplishments, and then also and the things that you've uniquely done. Like I've ridden in a Mardi Gras float in New Orleans and thrown beads at people. I don't have any idea how that makes me any special than anybody, but there aren't a lot of people who've done that. It was kind of cool, kind of a cool experience. So keep a list of your trials and tribulations that you've lived through that have helped you become the person that you are, and revisit it, right? And journaling's another thing. Looking back at pictures that you've taken of experiences that you have. I mean, one of my proudest moments isn't even about me. It's about my mom. I was raised by an Italian Catholic mother. And so one of the things, I took her to Italy and I watched her walk into the Sistine Chapel. I watched her. Like, I didn't look up yet. I mean, everyone walks in and looks up, right? Sees Michelangelo's masterpiece. But I watched my mom. And even talking to you about it, I just might cry. But that was so important to me to be able to be there for that and to take her on that trip. That, like, those are the moments that matter, and being able to have those listed somewhere. The other thing is, people who are truly your friends, either your coworkers, you can ask them those kind of questions. Like, there's a reason why, I don't know what it is now on LinkedIn. There's a reason why I have over 140 recommendations on LinkedIn. It's really simple. The reason is simple. I ask. Thousands of people have said no, because there are, 13,000 connections I have out there. But over 140 have said yes. And so there's some more ways that you're not even doing it. You can just say, hey, go check out my LinkedIn profile. And people will go look at those things. And there you're sort of tooting your own horn, tooting your own horn. So there are other ways to capture all of that. But in the end, it really is just about being authentic and using your voice, taking up your space that you have here, not shrinking into a corner, but taking up your space and sharing that with other people. Yeah, there are going to be people who say crappy things to you, but they're going to say crappy things to you regardless, because hurt people, and there are a lot of hurt people around here. And so you just get to be you, be that authentic self that you are. Own what you've done, own what you've screwed up, and be able to share it. And that's really how you toot your own horn.
That's beautiful. I just had an idea here. For those listening still, if you're still listening, you're special. So I'm not going to toot your own horn, but I want to thank you for sticking with this podcast and with me and the show and listening. Like, we're over 40 minutes into this episode. So if you're listening right now, it's a message for you. I want you to go, I don't know if you've ever been to the website, pmforthemasses.com. And this episode is episode 152. So if you go to pmforthemasses.com/152, it's going to be it's a blog post basically with a link to so you can listen to the episode and things like that. And at the bottom of it, there's a comment box. So I'd like for you to go there and share maybe like 3 or 4 things about you that puts you in a good light. One of your accomplishments, something nice people said about you, or a cool experience that you had, or even if you feel like you see other people's comments and you're like, oh, mine don't compare to, just share about some beautiful thoughts you had, a sunset that you watched, anything. And if you go there now and you see comments from other people, I want you to go and celebrate them, comment, and let's start there. Maybe that's a good place to start, Traci. What do you think? Maybe you and I can go there and do that.
Exactly. I love that. Yeah. I mean, share some things from your backward bucket list there. To your own horn. And I don't know how many people are going to go there, Caesar, but hey, it's a safe place to go do that. I love it. It's a great idea.
Yeah. And this will be there forever. So if you're listening to this episode way into the future and you go back there and there's just 2 people, that's fine too. Be the third. Traci, thanks so much. Again, if people want to learn more about you and what you do, where should they go? Where should they go so they can see how you're tooting your own horn?
Well, they can go to LinkedIn and look me up, Traci Duez. There's usually only one that shows up. I spell my name with an I, so Traci, and then Duez if you need to know that part too. And just go to LinkedIn. You can message me from there, connect with me from there. You can also go to the show notes. I'll put a couple links there as well. And that's the best way to do it.
Sounds great. And again, go to pmforthemasses.com/152 and you'll be able to see the show notes for today's episode and the comment box where you can you have my permission to toot your own horn there and share the wonderful things about you with us and the rest of the community. Traci, again, thank you so much, my friend. Always a delight to talk to you. Like I said, it always builds me up. You're a wonderful human being and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Right back at you. You are also a wonderful human being, which is why we talk so often, Caesar. I appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to the PM for the Masses podcast.
Tune in next week for more great ideas on how to manage your projects better and truly stand out in your industry.
pmforthemasses.com